everyone. Welcome to Type Talks. Today we have 8 ESTPs, and I'll let everyone introduce themselves. And so, Alejandro, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Alejandro. I'm originally from Colombia, but I live in the US now. So I'm an ESTP in the Enneagram 7 Wing 8. I'm a veterinarian. In my free time, I like to do CrossFit because I hate the regular gym. I also like the MBTI and spending time with my friends and things like that.
I'm DJ. I deliver for FedEx. Been studying personality theory for probably like 4 years now. Yeah, and I'm an ESTP.
Cool beans. And Caleb?
My name's Caleb. I work for DoorDash and music production. I've been studying MBTI off and on now about 6-7 years-ish, give or take. I don't know, I've slept. Yeah.
Cool. And Manda?
Amanda, ESTP. I think I'm a 7 Wing 8 since you guys all have that. I'm kind of just a tourist in the MBTI area. I don't have a channel, do any of that kind of stuff. Just find it interesting and thought it'd be fun to try one of these since I love watching Joyce's channel.
It's an honor to have you watch. And Taylor?
My name's Taylor. I've got a YouTube channel called Flow State. I am a returning fan favorite to Joyce's channel, and I'm an 8 Wing 7, 836 tri-type, and I've been into personality type for probably almost a decade now. No, less than that. About 7 years, probably.
Solid. And so Taylor has a YouTube channel called Flow State. Go check it out. He offers very thoughtful commentary on a lot of things while in a car, because ESTPs love doing things while doing things. So the SE is always kind of like in a car or doing something physical while also saying something thoughtful. So there's that. And Charles?
What's up, everybody? My name is Charles. I'm an ESTP 3 Wing 2, I believe. Still kind of figuring that out. And I guess a little bit about me. I originally was a musician playing drums and touring and whatnot, but decided to jump into a little bit more of a stable career. And so now I'm in software sales, and I spend a lot of my free time just going to clubs with buddies, working out, traveling, hitting the lake, doing whatever I can physically to stay active and have fun.
Having fun. I swear that's EP value.
It definitely is. It's probably one of the first or second core values of us.
And Alyssa?
Hey, it's Elisa.
Oh, Alyssa.
And everybody gets it wrong, so no big deal there. I'm also a 8W7. I don't really study the MBTI, but it amuses me to like ask my friends and close family what they are and like just kind of talk about it and troll the different groups and see how people act, mostly just to people creep and like understand them better. I've found it helpful in not pissing off and hurting my family's feelings as much and getting along better with coworkers, like just stepping back a little. I'm a creative director. I do website, logo, graphic design.
Makes sense. And Justin?
Hey everyone, I'm Justin, 7 Wing 6. I live in Seattle, and I also do some, well, I have like a boring stable job that pays the bills, but I do some website graphic design on the side as well. Part-time kind of thing, freelance. And I've been into MBTI for like on and off since like 2001. Kind of a occasional interest, and then I'll get like real deep into it and extreme about it. So that's where I'm at now. Interest again. So
yay. Glad to meet you at the peak of your interest.
Yeah, totally.
The whole ESTP tribe is here. Cool. And so my name is Joyce, and I'm a certified MBTI practitioner, and I facilitate the instrument and organizations. I also type and coach people. And so ESTPs, my first question for you all is, how do you experience your type? Before we started this, you all kind of pointed out trends that you kind of saw within your type, and I'm wondering if you could say that again, maybe while it's recorded too. That would be great.
Yeah, we were differentiating between ENTJ and ESTP, and I was talking about how ENTJs, because sometimes, like, I know you had this one of your shows about this, where ENTJs are more like kind of linear, and their logic is right on the face of things. And for us, we're kind of thinking behind the scenes, like, we're kind of like sometimes hyper thinking about things. That's kind of how TI works. So it works a little differently for between us, and that's one way you can tell.
Yeah, I would say we use a lot of models to basically understand how to interact with our world. That was one of the big things we were getting into, is how we'll kind of create a model for one thing in one situation, and that will stretch across multiple situations with the same like physical characteristics. So I'd say that's kind of how like SE and TI works together. Like I want to play golf with some buddies, right? And so the way I told them how to hit a golf club or how to hit the golf ball was similar to, I said, do it how you hit a baseball. It's like I'm taking that model right there and applying it to another physical model, and kind of everything works that way, whether it's talking to people, whether it's strategizing in your career or anything like that. It's kind of like taking these models and then applying them and pushing them onto reality, and it kind of gives you directions on what to do or where to go.
I thought of an example of that, but it's TMI, so I'm not gonna say it.
This dude.
Now you have to say it though.
Just say it, man. You.
This bedroom stuff, dude.
That's so ESTP.
What is the ESTP channel?
We need to hear this bedroom stuff.
Yes, we do. This isn't YouTube Kids, is it?
This is not YouTube Kids. This is the ESTP show. We got to hear about how you dick it down.
To put it in the most abstract way, between a guy and a girl, stimulation can be very similar principle. The way you go about it. I'll just put it that way, and without getting too much.
How smooth your stroke is.
Yeah, exactly.
Enter the chaotic bisexual.
Get a hole in one.
Or two.
Starting it off right.
There-
That was quick.
Okay, I got a question. This is what we kind of asked before. Like, well, shit, I kind of forgot what I was gonna say. Yeah, I feel like the combination of what?
I said, just think about sex and it'll pop back.
Gotcha. So when you're trying to get in this point, but yeah, like the applying a model. Like I feel like the way that our brains work is, like what Charles said, is like building on frameworks and applying them in the situation, which is one of the reasons why I think ESTPs are really good in crisis, because we've had a certain model and we know how to implement the model in a way that's going to work, and it's going to get direct results, I guess. At least that's the way that I perceive it. But
yeah, there is a trend with like a certain subsection of ESTPs who is into sex jokes a lot. Like when I talk to my ESTP friends, sometimes like it gets really sexual. So I think that is like an anecdote of the type. It's not everyone, but it definitely correlates towards ESTP in some way, but not everyone. Just like stating that. But there is so we talked about earlier about ENTJ versus ESTP. That's actually a very common mistype. People tend to think ESTPs look like ENTJs very often, whereas like the ESTP might know that they're an ESTP, but then other people are like, are you sure you're not an ENTJ? And then the ESTP is like, yeah, I'm sure I'm not an ENTJ.
My mother is an ENTJ actually, and yeah, there is a big difference because they are so goal oriented. My mother is the one that can spend like days without sleeping in order to, finish any task. I cannot do that. I'm more like, okay, I work on that later, or I'll do it tomorrow. Like, or, I get it done. If there's something I have to get done, I do it. But I'm not like, oh yeah, I'm gonna spend like hours no sleeping or anything like that. Just I'm more practical in that kind of thing. I don't know about you guys, but
Yeah, my dad's an ENTJ, and he would always have this kind of life vision thing and be like, okay, now if you're going to want to do this, then you're going to want to do this. And I'm like, dude, I'm just thinking about tonight. I'm just thinking about like going to sleep and like kind of taking day by day. And yeah, it was a huge difference between us. I mean, even though we're like both pretty enterprising, for them, it's more like this consistent sort of like thing where they're looking long term, and for us it's just kind of like, I'll react to the situation when it comes.
Yeah, like
I think.
oh,
Go ahead. I think one way that I've seen it kind of play out is some of my co-partners. One of them is an ENFP, I think. Anyway, his main thing is like he wants to give like really broad ideas of what's happening, and then just goes. And I want some amount of detail to where I can work out if something goes wrong, I need to be able to react quickly. And it's like, I need an overarching scheme. I need some of the details in the middle. And then I'll work out in my head where to go from there.
Yeah. Just to add on to that, I had a buddy in college who was an ENTJ, and we were always kind of friendly, competitive, competing, I guess you could say. And one of the biggest differences is he kind of like looks at the war, like he looks at the long term of things. Like he started working on an app, and he's just gonna build his company and become the CEO right away. Is how he sees it. And like he sees all these different like perspectives leading down where he kind of wants control now, where I focus on achieving in each day, what is possible, and don't really look long term like that. Like I'm cool going to work for a corporation and figuring out things as I go, and then maybe becoming a CEO later or something like that. Whereas he's like, no, absolutely not. You got to think about like, you can't just look at the trees. You got to see the whole forest, Charles, and stuff like that. And we kind of like battle back and forth. Now, what I will say is that like, I think ESTPs and ENTJs can definitely become almost adversaries as well as like good friends, because they do, when those two show up, like they show up, especially if it's like a corporate setting or any type of thing that has to do with like politically, like office politics, anything like that, or whether it's like any job you have, the ESTP and the ENTJ are going to be those alpha dogs that are battling it out. It's what I've noticed from my experiences.
yeah, I agree with that. And I've seen that ENTJs are definitely more like ambitious than ESTPs. We are more like yeah, we're ambitious too, but not in the sense of like ENTJs are more like play hard. We are like play smart, I would say. So
absolutely agree with that totally.
I also think it has to do with the axis too, like the TEFI axis. Like behind their desire to be effective is kind of a subjective valuing of something, whereas we don't really operate on that wavelength. So I think that's also contributing to their like goal-oriented kind of identity setting orientation or whatever. But
I think one thing too is looking at how we view the power structure, because like ENTJs kind of want everybody to know that they're in charge, as with the STP, it's more like we don't really care who's in charge, but are we getting the job done?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, I definitely resonate with that.
Yep.
I think that's even true of type 8, right? Is it? Maybe tell you this before.
Yeah, for me, and I don't know if this is an ESTP thing or a type 8 thing or both of them. I don't want to be the boss. I don't want to manage anybody else's day-to-day bullshit. But I do want to have authority when I want to flex the authority. So my last two jobs were in quality control and precast concrete, and I really liked the QC position because I had authority, but I didn't have the responsibility for nobody's calling me in the morning saying my grandma's car won't start, I'm gonna be late. I don't have to deal with any of that stuff. But when I said to do something, they did it.
For me, I think I think my favorite job. I don't know if I can say my favorite job absolutely, but I was a third key manager for a clothing store one time. And it was so much fun because I was always constantly troubleshooting things. And also I had the flexibility and opportunity to do so much more, just being like a regular cashier or worker or something like that. So
Mm.
it's kind of fun. For me, it was like more the exciting thrill of it than it was like, flexing authority so much. So maybe that's where the Enneagram part comes in. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's not so much the flex of authority that's appealing as it is very unappealing to not have authority when you feel like you want, to change the course of actions.
Oh,
like
okay.
Oh, you're doing this wrong. And they're like, screw you. I'm going to keep doing it wrong. Oh, no, you're not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a matter of freedom. So it's when you actually do want a kind of change of where it's going, you want to have that ability, that freedom to actually pick another path if the path that you're going down isn't one that you want to go down.
Yeah, I feel that way sometimes. Like, for example, when I had to mentor some people in my previous job, I gave them a lot of flexibility to do stuff like the way they want to do it, But at some point, if they started like repeating mistakes and again, and I was like, I told you, like, don't do this, It starts like becoming like the okay, I'm gonna be strict now because this is not working. But usually at the beginning we are very, very flexible.
Makes sense. How about the female ESTPs? Anything you want to add to the discussion?
I would say I like really independent jobs. So I work in finance, but I have things that I need to do at work, but I don't have anybody telling me like how to do them. And originally I went to culinary school and thought I was going to be a cook, which is a similar kind of thing. Like you kind of have your station and do your thing. And yeah, as long as you do what you're supposed to do, nobody really needs to bother you.
Yeah, so my boss just makes sure the tasks happen and that everybody's contributing their part so the project gets done. So like that pressure of like being in charge or whatever and like having to make sure people are following like rules or whatever, that takes it outside of like this is fun to be in charge. Like as long as being in charge of the project is fun, I'm good. But as soon as it's not fun and it's too serious, I'm out.
Interesting. Any other ESTP traits y'all notice in common with everyone? Earlier we were talking about guitar strings or something like that. DJ, you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about how like kind of breaking sensory, being locked in on a sensory object and trying to see how it's working. Like if I hear somebody playing music, like I'll listen to like watch YouTube videos and watch people who play guitar and like watch their fingers. And I can, if I watch them enough, I can kind of recreate that in my own life. Like when I'm playing music, I can remember the mechanisms that they did to produce that sound, even if I don't know the chord that it's associated with. So like visually seeing something and applying the model into reality based on that kind of like sensory, like zone in, I guess.
Mm.
Yeah,
And I've seen that with a lot of things because I've worked some with like foreign language. I've worked some with like calligraphy and music. Is like if recently I did a calligraphy job where I did a mural in a different language that I didn't really know, but I noticed as I was doing the piece, I was able to be like, oh, this is this because I saw this over here, and you start putting sensory pieces together to work out different things in your head. And the same thing with music. Like if you play piano, you know the linear scale.
Visualization, like you can just see something done and you can replicate, and I don't even know how. You can just like, for me, this can sound so weird, but I just kind of like feel it in my body, like my body's telling me what to do after I'm visualizing it in my head, after I've seen somebody else do it. So I'll usually pick up things pretty quick for them, for that matter, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say something like along those lines. I agree with that.
I think it's also like going with that train of thought. That's why I feel like we learn by doing. Like if someone gives us a set of like instructions and they say follow this, it's like, no, like just show me. Like I don't care about what the instructions say. Like I want to watch it happen and work with my hands. Otherwise, giving me a piece of paper doesn't do shit. So it's like, but
it depends. Sometimes instructions work. I mean, like sometimes I hate instructions as well, but sometimes you actually have to go and see the instructions to see it. I think we kind of like play with it like first, and if we don't, we can figure out how to do it. It's like, okay, let's go back to instructions and see how. But usually, I don't know about you guys, but this is the play smart thing that I was talking about. Like if I know someone who knows how to do the thing, instead of me trying to do the thing I'm supposed to do, I go and look for that person, and I'm like, how can you show me like how to do it? So they show me, blah blah blah, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I know how to do it. But it goes, with what someone was saying about like, I prefer like, do it first. So
yeah, that was the upside for me going to the Art Institute is, and I kind of regret in some ways going there, but at the same time, like it really helped because I, the shit learning it on my own, because trying to just read instructions and then like figure it out was way harder than like actually being in a class with a teacher, kind of hands-on, other people, and learning projects. That was so much easier for me to learn how to code and graphic design and all that. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Like, because I was thinking, man, I'm racking up a lot of debt, but I was like, well, it's actually helping me learn.
I don't normally learn better from class settings like that. I normally learn best by teaching myself, whether it's instructions or a textbook or just trial and error. But that's how I got through college, was just Adderall nights. You go on an Adderall bender for a week before midterms and a week before finals, and you teach yourself everything from scratch because you didn't go to class. When you did go, you weren't paying attention at all, or you were hungover.
Yes. Yeah, I hear you on that too. Sometimes it's hard for me to focus. Sometimes I phase out when people are talking if they're, it's kind of boring. I just kind of like,
I do that all the time, and if there's something like working on a car, for instance, if I go get somebody to show me, I'll end up letting them do it and then not learning. So that happens quite a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like when you're talking to people, you pick out what matters and what they're saying, but the rest is just like you're not hearing any of it. And then there's sometimes, like if you're in a job or whatever, like I went through that exact situation because I was a mechanic for a little bit right after high school, and they would show you something and you just kind of like just stare out. Like if it's not interesting, like stuff has to be like visually and sensory interesting to hold my attention. If you're going to be up there like Bueller, like whatever, like I am going to tune out and you're going to have to do it again. So you might as well add some oomph to it so we don't have to do it like that. That's my thought.
We have to be interested. Yeah. Because like mom talked about me when I was a kid. Like they even knew me as a kid was going to be a problem because I watched them close up my cribs, and they have videos of me watching them hook my crib up and put a lock on it. But I figured out how to undo all of it. So there's like 2-year-old me breaking out of a crib because like, you're not going to lock me in this box. I'm getting out. And like, I figured out what they were doing, undid it. Mom would hear some noise at 2 in the morning, find me in the middle of the floor. She's like, how did you get over there? And I'm just like pointing at the crib. Don't tell me I'm going to be stuck in a box. I'm getting out,
Don't control me, bro.
I did that about 5 years ago in jail, though. I was able to. I was in jail and I wanted out of jail, and so in the general pop area where I was, there's 2 doors. There's a huge like metal vault door that goes into the hallway, and then behind that there's like a cage of bars, and it's a staging area, right? So if you put somebody new in, everybody doesn't rush out the one door. But I watched them, and I don't remember what I did. I ended up like throwing like a flip flop up in between one of the latch. I don't remember. But anyways, I got out in the hallway, and the night shift chick, the chick who was working night shift, was like in the guard station. She's talking to me through the intercom. She's like, you have to go back to your cell or else I'm going to get the sheriffs in here. And at that point, I went back to the cell because they come with pepper spray.
Flip-flop is the ultimate weapon. This is our multi-tool. We will flip-flop our way through anything.
That's really funny. Do the ESTP females have anything they want to say as well?
I mean, I would say, and on that topic, the only thing I can really think of is I'll often feel like I know what people are going to say and I want them to hurry up. So I'll try to like help people finish their sentences faster.
Definitely.
And yeah. I'll be like, I think this is what you're going to say. Can we please hurry up?
Yes.
Yeah,
True.
my
Yeah.
coworkers are like, "You have an answer for everything," and I'm like, well, "Yeah, it's obvious. Like, come on, let's move. Like, what are you doing?"
I wonder if it's obvious is maybe a catchphrase, or it's common sense is a thing that ESTPs might think to themselves. Like someone really doesn't have common sense or really doesn't get what's obvious, and it's like, really? You don't? You can't?
Yes, that's a theme.
It generally is. Yeah. I use common sense almost like a period when I talk to people. It's just common sense. It's just something you should know. At least I think you should know. Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
Yes. There we go.
My catchphrase is, "What the hell is wrong with you? Get out of my way."
So isn't it obvious that we would do that?
That's hilarious.
I'm not above dropping a few does on people.
Funny. Oh yeah, Amanda.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I related to what Elisa said in the beginning, where her intro was very much like on my wavelength, like why I became interested in MBTI, mainly to get along with work people better.
Oh yeah. So on the topic of offending people, what is your relationship with that, everyone?
All the time.
Yeah, that affects my daily life.
I have a serious case of foot and mouth syndrome.
Same.
I think it's
I've
also
been
because
called
we don't take
everything under the sun. Like, that's not even how, like, I don't think or feel any of these things, but because I don't respond the way people want, they, like, project these other, like, feelings they have on me.
Oh,
So I've
yeah.
been, like, called prissy, and I'm not. Or they think I'm judging them, and I'm just thinking and busy with other shit that has nothing to do with them, like, on a regular basis.
I tend to have a bit of tact, but there have definitely been, quite a number of moments where I've offended people, especially my wife. Just like, why did that offend you? I don't get it. It's just the truth. Especially when you get in an argument and it's like you throw out something that you just feel like is just an obvious thing, and then it's like, oh, like what the hell? Like, it's too cynical or something like that, and it's like, well, these are just the things we don't point out, but we all see, right?
Right.
Are you not seeing that?
If you don't talk about it, it's not real.
Right.
I think sometimes I'll try to like think I'm being sarcastic too, and my friends will be like, just don't do that. Because like I have friends who will be sarcastic and they'll say like the same thing or something even worse than me, and I'll try to like make a joke like them, and everyone will just be like,
Yes.
why are you such a bitch? Like, why can't you just and I'm just like, oh, I thought I was kind of doing that thing, but
Yeah, you
guess
go
it
to
wasn't.
everybody, all of a sudden they're having a scandal.
My sarcastic voice and my not sarcastic voice sound exactly the same. So that happens to me too. I normally tend to think that the sarcasm should be clear because what I'm saying is stupid as shit. But people don't always get that without the inflection. So I do the same thing quite a bit.
I do that as well. And I think as far as we're just blunt. So sometimes we just say stuff and I mean, like you said, it's just kind of obvious and you think everybody knows it, but I guess it's just not something that we say out loud, and I'll figure that out when it's too late.
And a lot of times, I mean, not a lot of times, but sometimes, maybe this happens to other people here too, but sometimes I realize I'm saying things and I'm not even sure if I'm sarcastic or not. It's like both.
Yes.
Borderline sometimes into like a little bit of passive aggression, but not really. I mean, I don't really feel that when I'll do it, but sometimes I'm like, well, I guess I wasn't really joking. I was just kind of saying something mean in a joking
like
way.
lazy aggression.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it's not just only about being sarcastic. It's also that we say what we think it's like off. Like for example, if I'm in a class and someone like said something like a mistake or something, like especially the professor, I will say, well, that was stupid, or that doesn't make sense, But it depends on the context. You are not gonna say like, oh, you were being stupid, right? But you kind of make a comment like it shouldn't be that way or something. And we usually say what other people like they are thinking that, but they don't say it.
Yes.
So that's why we get into trouble. And that happened to me a lot of times. It's like people come to me like, oh yeah, I think that, you know, think that as well. But nobody, like, we were the only ones that we could speak up, kind of. So we kind of like sometimes are seen as, we are seen as leaders, but also we also make enemies easily for that reason, I would say.
I would agree with that. I feel like people who talk about nothing or just things that don't matter and they're just trying to force small talk will tend not to like me because, like, I mean, they'll keep trying. It's weird. It's like people don't like you, but they still want to get your response. So they'll still keep coming to your office to talk to you. And it's like, I'm kind of giving you one-word responses because, like, what you're saying is, like, just borderline. I had to catch myself there. Dumb. And I don't know. There's just nothing to continue the conversation with, but they keep going. And so I think people like that will tend to be put off the most by ESTPs.
I think it's also because people subconsciously appreciate like impartial truth. Like, I feel like we're reality checks constantly because we're aware of what's happening. But the problem is when people want our opinion, they really don't want our opinion. But they keep coming back and they're like, well, what about this? And it's like, well, that's stupid. And they're just like, well, what do you mean? It's like, that is dumb. Like, why would you do that thing? So they want it, but they can't deal with it when we say it. It's a weird relationship.
Doggo.
That was actually how I got into rap because I was in a collaboration with somebody and he sent me his part of the song. And I was like, dude, this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. Like, your verse is everywhere. You are offbeat. There's no like story happening to this 16-bar rap. What are you doing? This is trash. And he's like, well, if you think you're so good, why don't you do it? Okay. I dropped the song 2 weeks later. It went live on the radio. And I'm like, all because you don't know what you're doing. Now I got to go do it. And yeah.
I think we can smooth things over with people, though. That's what I will say. Like, even if people get mad, they still like you. They still come back. They still want to hang out with you. So it's like weird. It's like we piss people off, but at the end of the day, everybody brings it up, but it doesn't really matter because they just come back for more. So it's like, I don't know. It just kind of works itself out.
I think it's also because they realize that it's not personal. Like, I had this one guy I was training, and he was asking me questions. He's like, man, like, he was just getting emotional where I was like, dude, it's just that you're not good at your job. And he looked at me, he was like, what? I'm like, it doesn't mean you're a bad employee or you're a bad person. It just means you need to get better. Like, you suck. Like, it's like, and we can improve that. So it's like we dish out truth in a kind of semi-charismatic way with like that tertiary FE. It's like kind of smooth, but it doesn't, I feel like it doesn't seem, people recognize that it's not personal. Like, once they know us, they're like, oh, he's saying that as mere observation, not like you're a bad person because you can't do this thing.
There's no malicious intent. It's just, yeah, the observational. But like the way Charles described it is literally like mine and my husband's relationship. Like, I'm constantly like hurting his feelings. And he's like, God, you're lucky you're cute. And I'm like, I guess I'm lucky you hate yourself because you here. You signed up for this. Like, come on.
Oh, I was going to say that, before the show, we were talking about the difference between ESFP and ESTP before Taylor came up. But for us, like, okay, so here's how it works. Like, introverted thinking is like we're thinking to ourselves, right? Because it's introverted. And then the feeling is more extroverted. So we're kind of like, it's not as much of a priority, but it's still like, well, we want to get along with people because we actually like hanging out with people, you know, kind of thing.
Yeah, I've pissed off a lot of ESFPs in my life before. Like, I feel it, like we'll jive with the SE, but when they bring like the kind of impersonal value, that's obviously our weak point. So I'm like, that's not adding up. Like, okay, you value that thing, but it doesn't make sense for you to do it. So it's like we're talking different languages. But
yeah, it's because it's like I'm stepping over tripwires that I can't myself see because I'm like appealing almost to what I universally think is, where to say it again, common sense. But like for them, they might, I guess they like feel some type of way. I don't know, but it like pulls an anger tripwire that really I just don't care. Like, okay, I do care, of course. That's my, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, it's not.
It's
not
like seeing.
I feel like we care, but the way that we're trying to like make sense of the issue. So my bad.
Yeah.
So it's like when they bring these things, they're spilling the values out there, and that's our weak point. So we're like, okay, if value A doesn't make sense to do, then you shouldn't value A. That's just the way that we. At least that's the way that I feel like we
Absolutely.
think.
Yeah, it's got to make like sense. It's got to lead somewhere and have like a logical reason behind. Like I feel like everything we do, there's a logical reason. Unless it's like something maybe pleasure oriented that's just spur of the moment. But besides that, usually there's a reason behind what we're doing. I feel like a lot of people just kind of do things like my reason earlier where somebody just comes into my office to talk. It's like, I would only do that with somebody like I had something to say to. I wouldn't just do that on a whim. But a lot of people do move that way.
I like the way you said that, Charles, because like consolidating tasks where like if I'm doing something, I usually have multiple goals lined up with what I'm doing. I'm not just going to do one thing to do one thing. I'm going to go do this because it also accomplishes this goal, this goal, this goal, and then that's all done, and I don't have to think about it anymore.
Absolutely.
I guess, but at work, I'll just do the rounds sometimes if I don't have any work that I have to do or whatever, and just go talk to people. So, but I mean, if they're obviously not wanting to talk to me, I wouldn't make them.
I'll do the rounds if I need a break or if I'm bored or if I don't want to do what I'm supposed to do. I'll for sure make the rounds and find a distraction.
Definitely there. Yeah.
And someone was talking at the beginning about the like working from home thing. I actually like interacting with people a lot, but all depends. You know, like for example, I don't know. In my case, like if I don't like my coworkers or I feel like no, like I prefer to work from home. But if I really like them, I prefer to go to the office. So it really depends on the people and not like the work itself. If I want to work from home or not.
Totally.
Interesting chat, everyone. And so I was wondering, maybe we could go to ESTP stereotypes. What is your opinion of ESTP stereotypes? You can start with whatever one you want.
Oh, I have one. Like the adrenaline junkie thing. And I would say, like, not necessarily. I mean, I like to take risk in a very different manner. I mean, I would do things in my life that nobody else would do it. You know, like going to a different country with no money and see what would happen, which many people will feel really uncomfortable. I would be like, whatever, I will see. You know, but like for example, doing things that are gonna be like just because it's fun. I kind of think about it before, you know, I'm like, this is dangerous. Of course I'm not gonna do this. This is stupid, you know?
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna do things that we want to do. So it's like, if someone's trying to goad us into doing things like, let's go jump off this fucking bridge, we're not gonna be like, yeah, let's go. Like, we're not, like, that's not gonna happen. Like, if we want to do it, then we'll do it. But we're not just gonna follow blindly in a stupid decision.
Yeah. And it's normally like the risks that we do take, which I'm also a big fan of taking risks, but they're not as reckless as they look. We've thought about it, we've calculated it more. It's still normally risky, but it's not completely balls to the wall, reckless, and it's not thought out.
Yeah, it's not pure impulsiveness like people seem to think. We generally are aware of the success rate of what we're doing.
Yeah, when I moved up here, I didn't have a job or even a for sure place to stay. And so like I was you know, it took me not quite a month, but almost a month to find a job. And like I was you know, the guys subletting to me and all that, and they were all like kind of freak out, like, are you actually gonna get a job? I'm like, yeah, of course I know how to get a job. I eventually did, and you know, it all worked out, but it's like it was weird to me because like people were like kind of freaking out about it. And I'm like, what's the freak out about? Like, I know how to make things work. But I can understand how seeing from the outside in, it looks like totally crazy and wild.
It's more like a calculated risk because the TI is going to want to calculate the risk before you do it. SE does tend to make riskier decisions than other people would make. So in comparison to other people, it may be risky because people don't tend to take risks. People tend to be really risk adverse. I think that with the adrenaline junkie thing, there is some truth to that because it kind of links back to a lot of things. It links back to the crisis situations and why ESTPs excel when a crisis hits. The focus is able to kind of steer into the situation. And that's caused because of adrenaline. Another thing, too, is the reason why ESTPs make so many sex jokes sometimes is also part of a little bit of the adrenaline. Well, that's stretching it a little, maybe. But there's a little bit of adrenaline you get from, like, risky topics.
I've always been a big proponent of try everything once and see what happens. And I think if you wanted to break it down, it's that SE wants to experience everything so that TI can categorize it for later. So if I go out and experience everything, I've got this huge catalog of TI information. So if I come across a situation, it's not going to be like it's my first time experiencing it because I did that one really impulsive thing back when I was 20. And it's kind of the same thing. So that TI's catalog the template or the model and is like, hey, this was like that thing that we randomly did back then. So maybe it's going to go out like this. So I can already be planning it. So try everything once, see what happens, use that information for later.
I totally agree with that. And actually, I've done things that scare me. That really, like, for example, I'm afraid of heights, like heights, and I still like don't like jump out of like 10 meters or whatever. Like I've done things that like, okay, why do you do it? You know, it's because of the experience, right? But my point at the beginning was that we don't do like those stupid things like just because it's like just because, like, for example, Jackass thing. I don't think that's a good example of an ESTP, although some people think it is. So
I can totally see them as being SE doms, but that's not really like, I mean, if they are, then I think they probably are. That's like really a fraction of all the SE doms. Like, I wouldn't do most of the stuff they do either. You're just asking for pain, obviously.
It's like a small fraction that does not speak for most at all. It's kind of like you have religious people, and then you have the really crazy religious people, and then the normal religious people are like, those are the crazy ones. They're not truly one of us. They kind of are, but they're not actually reflect us at all.
The minority is not the majority.
Absolutely. Yeah. How about some other stereotypes?
I think the fact that we have no intuition is not true. Are we like, do we kind of get anxious when we use it for too long? Yeah. But does that mean like I'm like only like I don't understand what would happen if I don't know? Okay, I guess it is kind of hard to come up with like hypotheticals and stuff. But like if you were to like push his chair over, like I know what's going to happen in the future if I do something like wild. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like completely inebriated from cause and effect as they like kind of describe us as in all the MBTI stuff I've seen.
Yeah, and I like talking about deep topics too. Like, you know, obviously we're talking about psychology, but you know, like religion, philosophy, metaphysics, and things like that. I like to dive into that stuff. I don't do it as good as intuitive friends, but it's still fun, you know, to talk about that stuff sometimes.
Philosophy can also be the realm of TI too, because TI likes to explore mental models of things. It's not just an intuitive sport. The thing is, sensing types can do intuition. It's just they want a practical application after. So it's like, okay, you learned this. What can you do with this knowledge? Is it something like you can actually use? Are you like just understanding this for the sake of understanding, or actually are you gonna figure out a way to integrate it into your life?
And I feel like our intuition's good if we've seen a pattern. Like if we've experienced a certain thing, if we keep seeing it, we're not going to be stupid and be like, oh, well, I'm seeing this pattern happen again. Let me just not pay attention to it. Like I feel like if we've experienced something, we have a good enough ability to recognize what course of action we've taken. But if we haven't, that's when it seems like it's an issue. Like if it's a completely new data set that we haven't experienced, then we'll kind of go in with extroverted sensing, create the framework, and then store it when it needs to be understood in the future. So yeah.
I don't know. I think of like if the there's kind of like an NI planner stereotype that maybe like an INFJ would be or something. I'm definitely not that though. Like I tried this year, like my sister's an ISFP, and I tried to get us like just like yearly planners or whatever, a goal planner thing. And like we did a FaceTime to like see our goals page, and we both have like 3 things on like the 6 month, like 1 thing on the 1 year, and like the 5 year is just like blank. Like we'll figure it out. Like so I think like yeah, I can figure out when there's going to be like consequences to actions usually, but I mean, do I always think about it, and am I like planning my life out far in advance? No. So some of those stereotypes I think are there's a reason for some of it, at least in my experience.
Yeah, there's a grain of truth to all stereotypes, most stereotypes, but some of it also misinforms as well because people take it all seriously. It's like, no, just that fraction is true.
So there is another stereotype, and I don't know about you guys, but I think it's not totally true. It's the one that that, for example, like as when we are when we have a partner, that we look for some other people, that we cheat a lot on them, and I don't think that's true. We are actually very committed to. I mean, what's the point of having a partner if if you are gonna be with some other people? I think like for that reason, like I prefer to be single, right? Like, what's the point of like having someone so I think that's another stereotype.
Yeah, I think the biggest things in relationships for ESTPs is you really have to make sure you're on the same page. Once an ESTP decides like that they like you and want to be with you, like they're going to 100% go after you and make that happen. But if you're like, oh, we went and got sushi one day and he was so fun, and I think like we're really shooting the sparks, and you don't have that clarification, because to be honest, a lot of us, I think, do fun stuff every day because like that's kind of our MO. It's like you could really be off in la la land and not know it. So that's one thing that I think creates that misconception. A lot of types kind of romanticizing things that because I know a lot when I'll like even talk to like friends I've just met or after dates or whatever, like things just kind of seem normal to me, or like normal things to do during the day, like that other people will think is like a whole adventure. That's something I've noticed, where for me, it's like, well, that's every day. Like that's just a regular thing to do. But to them, it's like a way bigger experience than it was for me. And so I think like people can kind of romanticize the relationship they have with us in that way.
And also because we're putting it all out there and investing time in whoever we're with, we're like, oh, like they really like me, it just happens with friends. It's kind of like, oh, you're my best friend. And I'm like, when did that happen?
I think for me, one of my things is everything I do is a side quest. It's new adventure. It's all a new thing to do. But every day is just a series of side quests. And even with relationships, most of my relationships have been open. And to me, it's because I've never been the jealous type. So I'm just like, you know what? If we're not working, you need to go somewhere else. I am totally fine with that. Go on. It's a new day. I'm going to deal with this today, and then tomorrow I'll go do something else. I just don't get very emotionally invested into. I have not yet. Extremely emotionally invested in people's view of our relationships. It's not that I don't enjoy people. I've had a lot of really good relationships, but at the same time, it's like, hey, if we're both not happy and we're both not enjoying this, I am 100% okay with us either trying out an open relationship or just going our separate ways if we feel we need to go that way. And I'm not going to be upset about it.
Yeah, so it seems it depends on the person. SE, it does have a propensity to want to experience everything, but for certain ESTPs, it's in different realms of their life. So one might have that in a certain specific area of their life, and another might have it in a different area of their life. Cool. And so any other stereotypes?
Feelings, like we're just emotionless shitbags that have no feelings. They're just like, I have feelings all the time, but like I don't process or make choices based on it. They just don't matter. And I don't mean that in a like feelings that like your feelings don't matter. They just are irrelevant to me and what I'm gonna do with what's happening to me. And they're also draining. Like feelings and emotions are exhausting to me. So I want to deal with them as little as possible, but I am aware they're there.
Yeah.
And it's normally
Taylor?
anger is the one that comes out. Like for me, it's my emotional continuum is anger at the bottom end and excitement at the top end. But most of the time, it's just sort of neutral.
I'm the same way.
I relate to that a lot.
I kind of think of myself as a cat. I'm really enjoying this belly rub, and I'm enjoying it now. But if this goes on much longer, I need to do something else. If you don't stop, I'm going to go that way. Like, it's a cat getting a belly rub. I might call your face off if you don't stop when I'm ready.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the like it being kind of exhausting. Like, but also when other people expect you to take care of their emotions a lot, that's even worse, like than your own emotions to me.
We're not qualified for that shit.
Yeah, I'm not.
And yeah, I mean, we have feelings, but I don't know. I don't like to share them with just people. Just like, I mean, just with very close friends that are really, and that not like feelers. I think that I usually have like really close friends that are thinkers. So I try to, because when I like share my feelings or stuff like that, and I get like a very like rational like opinion about that, and not like the, I don't know, like I remember hearing from another ESTP the word like feelings land, something like that. Yeah, so I don't like that thing.
You can hypothesize from all of this feeling talk that I think for ESTP females, if they're in a relationship with a male who is a feeler type, what can happen is the phrase, I am the man in the relationship and you're the female in the relationship might come up. Because it's like, wow, I'm the female, but as an ESTP, I feel like the man in the relationship, whereas the guy feels like the girl.
That conversation has definitely happened. I've told my husband that at least a dozen times. He is an ENFP.
I think my two longer relationships have both been with ENTPs, and so that doesn't really happen with them. Although they will expect you to take care of their emotions a lot. I'm like, seems like something you should do for yourself, but but yeah, like I don't know. I have a lot of feeler friends, like a lot of my female friends are. But I don't think I've dated very many. Yeah.
Makes sense. And so any other ESTP stereotypes?
This isn't really a stereotype, but I noticed that we get a lot of stereotypes from other types mistyping. As in, like, people, I feel like the ESTP, like, the image of that personality is something that, like, I went to a Little Baby concert like 3 weeks ago, and you could say that whole crowd was ESTPs based off of looking at it. Obviously, it's not, but, like, they're just based off the stereotypes that people say. It's just behavior of, like, college-aged kids. And it's like, it's not like, that could be an ISFJ you're talking about or an ESFJ. Like, I hear people say all the time, ESTP was my high school bully. And I'll say, like, straight up, no, we weren't, man. We were too busy partying, having fun, like, hitting on girls, like, practicing football. We weren't focused on you. Like, that's not what we do. Like, just be, at least for me, like, nobody's bullying anybody at all. So, like, when I see these stereotypes, I'm like, these are like other types that like people would just immediately go, oh, that guy drives a motorcycle. ESTP. And it's like, what are y'all talking about, man? And so I think that perpetuates to a lot of the stereotypes that we have.
Who were the ones fighting the bullies? What's y'all mean? Like,
exactly.
We want to challenge.
Save your ass, dude. What the hell?
Yeah, I felt that same way.
So,
Little Baby. Yeah, I was good, but like everybody was wilding and going crazy, and like even like kids are like 18 coming up, like offering me beers, trying to act like they were more screwed up than they were and stuff. And so people will see that and be like, oh, look at this ESTP over here. Like, he's just like that douche from high school. And it's like, both of them are not ESTPs, fool. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. It's crazy.
I took my 11-year-old daughter and 13-year-old stepdaughter to see Korn about a month ago.
Nice.
And it was fun. It was a little bit, and we got pit tickets. It was rowdier than they expected, but I didn't realize until I'm there with my 11-year-old daughter on my shoulders that, like, I'm in a sea full of dads. We all got gray beards like this. Korn is dad music anymore. It's wild.
And about the bullying thing, I think that we like to play a fair game always. So, for example, if I'm gonna bully someone, it's gonna be someone who is at the same level, kind of the same capacity, physical capacity or whatever. I usually do it with my ENTJ friend or my ESFP friend, and we bully each other or us as a group. But like if I see someone like a kid or someone who is like in defense, I don't know the word in English, but yeah, I usually more like protective towards those people and not like bullying them.
Yeah, the only way you'll find me acting like that is if you're being a jerk and I'm like reading through your body language and just watching you and noticing like little weaknesses here and there. And then like me, like if you come towards me, then I'm going to step to that because it's like, okay, now I'm going to put the pressure on you, boy, and we'll see what you're really about. But I'm not going to do that for somebody random. You know what I mean? Like I'm generally going to be nice to everybody. That's more friends. Like, come on.
I think so. I think a lot of people though mistake because we don't respect people's misplaced sensitivities, right? And so we'll just speak on things plainly and not tiptoe through the tulips. And I think a lot of people interpret that as bullying. You'll find out years later that somebody thought you were bullying and you were just talking about gay people, you know, like or whatever it is, whatever topic it is that you're supposed to handle with mittens on. I think a lot of people interpret that negatively.
Mm-hmm.
I think we love the clap back. We want people to clap back at our observations. Like if we call somebody out, like, well, that was stupid. And then we're waiting for them to like, yeah, but you know, da 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 da. And like, we love that kind of
banter,
camaraderie of the clap back.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly.
I've always loved, I mean, even if someone's making fun of me, if it's a good one, I'll still laugh, you know, like, hey, that was funny.
Yeah, and that's why I don't know, I have some issues with some people because someone says something funny or something and then you try to keep the conversation, oh yeah, blah blah, and then someone comes like, oh no, that's not good, guys, don't talk about that. I'm like, shut up, you know. It's like
no topic is off the table.
Yeah.
Fascinating. My next question for everyone is cognitive functions. How would you describe SE in your own words? Dominant function, if you guys know about it.
Yeah, I've talked about this a bit with people, and for me, it's like, so I'm constantly tuned into my environment. Obviously, like that's the basic description of it, but like to me, I'm just saying everything kind of vivid detail. And when I talk to people who are like intuitive, they don't generally tend to have that, and it just like surprises me. But it's like any thought that I have is sort of more of the background for me. And I know this, it may be different for different ESTPs, exactly how it feels or whatever, but everything is like sensory stuff is engaging to me. So it's constantly pulling me in. And I almost feel like very little boundary between myself and the world around me.
Well, for me, it's about, I don't know, observing everything. I'm all the time like noticing things. Sometimes I don't know, I perceive like kind of things that other people can not. So, and it's like so natural. I don't even have to do it. It just comes, you know, like I'm seeing things, I'm kind of like processing things, but at the same time, it's just like about seeing everything around. And I pay special attention to everything around me. So yeah, and I want that stimulation as well. That stimulates me. So, for example, if I want to study and I don't feel like studying, I change my environment. So I go somewhere else because I need some stimulation. And that's like changing my atmosphere or whatever.
I feel like a calm connection with everything. And like, obviously I observe everything as well. But another thing is like, I can feel the weight of things around me. So it's like, if someone were to, it's weird. It's almost like if someone were to say something to me and like we were to like debate, or like somebody was to throw a quick quip, it's like I can feel that physically. And it's almost like, I think it was like Bruce Lee, you said it be like water. Like I can feel the flow of things around me constantly. So it's like going to be very hard to catch me off guard, because it's like almost in slow motion. Like I feel it and then I lock on and I know what to do with that TI.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot, especially like listening to music. Like, and I think this is like a combination of maybe SC and FE, but like if I experience something and it pisses me off, like I'll play some loud ass music and it just like being immersed in it and feeling moved by it. Like it's kind of that, it's probably still extroverted sensing, but to me, I feel like SC is like, is a part of that, of being kind of like physically rooted and noticing, noticing details and noticing immediate sensory information, and being able to kind of like operate with it and as your own sensory information. You're your own sensory unit. So it's like knowing how to affect something, how to move something, or operate it or something.
Something I want to kind of point out, though, with all these descriptions everybody's giving, like I agree with them all, they're all right. But to somebody who's not an SE user listening to it, it's gonna, SE is very visceral, right? So even though it is all those things, it's nobody's thinking about it. Nobody's aware of them doing SE, right? Like it wasn't until I learned about cognitive functions that it dawned on me that not everybody's living in the absolute moment like me. Not everybody can play a video game on their cell phones, drive with their knees, smoke a cigarette, and eat a sandwich, and not wreck. But yeah, so all these descriptions I agree with, and I think they're accurate. But it all it's just automatic.
That's why I was pointing out the contrast with intuitive, because to me it's just like that's normal, and I thought everybody was doing that. So I used to think I was an intuitive type because, you know, I'd have those thoughts or intuitions or whatever that would come every once in a while, and like, oh, I can like conceptualize like that. But actually, like my default state is, you know, sensory. But like, you know, like some people will describe it like SE DOMs see everything in the room at once. I'm like, how can anyone do that? Consciousness has a focal point. You look at what's engaging or what you need to focus on. You're not like looking at everything. Like it's actually just you feel the immersion of it. It's not really like you're hyper focused on everything, like you're saying.
Along the lines of what Flow State was saying, I really agree with the way that he said visceral, because to me, SE is that really intense experience of everything happening around you. Like life is kind of happening almost at a slow motion. The world around you is intense and it's vibrant, and you're taking all that in. And it's like, SE to me is that visceral existence of everything around me is happening. I'm seeing everything around me happening. No, where do we go from here?
Yeah, there's a vividness to
yeah, some of it can be background, like background information. You're not really focusing on it. It's just kind of like there, but you're aware of it, you know.
And yeah, and for example, when I was driving, I used to drive motorcycle. I was I don't know if that ever happened to any of you, but I was super aware of everything. So I had like these reactions, like sometimes like overreactions about to a stimulus around me. Like, and actually once I had a fall for that reason, because there was like this stimulus coming, you know, then my reaction was breaking really like fast, because that was and actually that saved me. But you know, like we have this like really quick reactions to everything around. So actually for me, like driving was more stressing. I mean, it was fun, like to, you know, like the adrenaline thing, like of driving actually, but at the same time, it was kind of like the risky thing. I don't know.
I noticed this actually recently, that I can be pretty sensitive to like my space. not in like a like people like I'm very aware of if you're getting in like my circle. So like if we're at the club, if we're in the gym, if we're anywhere, like I basically, and I'm very touchy too. So like if you come in my space, I'm going to literally like grab you and move you out of it. Not in a mean way. I'm gonna be like, oh, excuse me, bro. But like best believe like I'm not gonna be like, oh, sorry, or excuse, like no, like this is my circle, and I'm very sensitive to like you being in it, so you're gonna have to leave. And that's just kind of what it is. Not in a mean way, but in a like I like my personal space. That's just something I've noticed that other people don't necessarily have among my group of friends all the time.
I'm wondering why that is. Is it because it feels a little bit claustrophobic?
Yeah, that could be it. It's just something I'm very aware of. Like I'm very aware of like how close this person is, and like maybe I want to stretch out. Like I know people have commented on like how immediately as soon as I get to a place, I'll kind of like wherever I'm sitting, like stretch out and stuff. But it's more so because I like to be comfortable. That's what I would say. And if you're going to impede on that like comfortability, like right here, I need a certain amount of space around me to swing my arms like I'm doing right now. It's kind of like that. Like I need space to comfortably do what I'm going to do in the physical environment. And if people are in that space, I can't do that.
Yeah, that's another thing I thought was just normal, but I guess that's kind of an SE thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. And Amanda and Elisa?
The first thing that popped in my head when you guys started talking about this is like the difference between the way I experience sex and the way my husband experienced it. So like he's all about like his feelings and stuff, and I want like as much like stimulation and like different like tactile things happening as possible. And he's like, talk to you, let's cuddle, and all this bullshit. And I'm just like, nah, I just want to like be experiencing shit. Like that's the first thing that comes to my mind. And then the other thing is like going and experiencing like EDM festivals and stuff. I found like I don't actually like going with my friends or people because like they want to talk and they want to engage with it, and I just want to like go and just like feel it and like be in it and not like having to have those like interactions and get like I just want to have like the experience. And
Yes.
I find that's probably why I go like I've always been very independent. I'll just go do shit by myself and like not worry about it because I don't want anyone like detracting from like the experience I get to have with like whatever they have going on. Like I want it to be like I just get to like have it and feel it, and I don't know.
Speaking my soul language there. I miss the mosh pit, man. You know, up in everybody's space and like shoving them and crap.
Yeah, the way Charles is talking about like people in his bubble, like even when we go to this stuff, like there's like always these tiny girls that always think they should be in front just because like they're tiny. But I can feel them coming, and I will like they're drunk and I'm drunk, but not as drunk as that. I'll move so they'll fall over, and then like they can get out of the way. Because I'm just like, you didn't need to be, you weren't here. This is my space. I reclaimed this area and I'm just here. Like, get here sooner. Like, be prepared. Think about it. Use your brain. Anyways, that's all I got.
I can relate to that at like concerts and stuff because girls don't expect to get pushed back by another girl. It's like, oh, sorry. Oops. But I would say like, yeah, I know. But like I would say like driving. I was talking, and so like I have a couple like INTJ friends who were telling me the other day we were talking about this, and they're saying they always use their cruise control, like always, whether they're going like 30 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour, like they'll put their cruise control on, and that was so weird to me because like I drive a manual car and like I like to feel like I'm in control of the car. Like I don't necessarily love driving all the time, especially in traffic and stuff. But I don't like cruise control. It kind of freaks me out. I'm afraid I'm going to be one of those like Prius people who like auto accelerates off a cliff or something. Yeah. And then the other weird thing I would say I kind of have that's more of it like visceral is like I sometimes get like that kind of misonia or whatever it is where like chewing sounds or like somebody's like nose whistle like when they're breathing or whatever like will drive me crazy and I just want to like murder them.
Yep.
I could hear it when you said that.
Yeah. But that's kind of the ones that come to mind.
whenever people like smack their food, I want to smack them. Get out of here with that.
Bro, that space thing is a real thing. I was actually gonna say that, like, I feel like I'm super aware of, like, so like at work I have this like long aisleway when I walk from the front to the back. And like I can always feel things shifting around me. It sounds woo-woo as shit, but it's like I can feel if someone's like moving close to me. And if it's just like, and I will have that kind of sensitivity that you're talking about. Like, I feel myself kind of retracting. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and then I can either respond in aggression, depending on who it is and depending on the situation. But yeah, man, like people encroaching on my territory, on my space, I'm really like, I will get super aggressive if people are not respecting my area. That just, I don't know what it does, but it just, yeah, I feel that for sure.
I have a question for
Territorial.
you guys. Like for example, when you were in class, did you used to sit in the back or in the front?
Yeah, usually
Middle.
in the back. So
In the back, yeah, me too.
I can do whatever I want without, like, I mean, not with whatever I want, but I get away with more without being like watched, like a, you know, like
Because yeah, I was asking that because I feel like in the back you have more control because you can see everything, you know, around you. Like in front, I
Yeah.
kind of, I don't like to see the front because I kind of have blind spots. Like,
Yes.
and in the back you can kind of see everything.
Oh yeah.
So that's I mean, everything for ESTPs like has a reason to be, and like seeing in the back has a reason. It's not just because. And actually, also, if I wanna just like not paying attention, nothing's gonna happen. Nobody's gonna notice that.
I have to sit, like, if we go to restaurants, I always have to sit in the corner. I don't like being in the middle. I'm like, I want to, first, I think it's also just like being able to see people and interact, but there's also like having my back in the corner that just feels comfortable because I feel like I have my own territory. People aren't coming over here. It's just, I'm there. But being in the middle, or like, if all the action's behind me, I'm like, no, like, let's switch seats. Like, I'm not doing that shit. Like, I can't stand that.
It's crazy how much I relate to a lot of the comments you guys are making, and especially the general gist of it. It's like resonating big time.
That's great. Yeah. And so let's move on to the next cognitive function, introverted thinking, TI, and how you all experience that. But Charles, you can also give your take. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I definitely related to what you guys said about at the concerts. Like, I think that's when I'm most of my SE energy. And I believe like SE in the front makes you, with that visceral, like makes you want to feel intensely. So definitely, you know, certain different like substances and whatever can like enhance that. And then you enhancing that with your own adrenaline. Like sometimes there's just like this animalistic reaction to it that just feels amazing. I see everybody shaking their head. It's just like, yeah, bro. Like it just feels good. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Are we all going out? Like, what's the move? Like,
Let's do
What's the next show? That's what I want to know.
Let's go.
down.
ESTP meetup.
I am literally ready to pick up and go to Vegas in December because they're removing their mask bans and shit.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's gonna be
Sister lives
way
in
back to
Vegas.
normal.
Vibe.
All right, there's gonna be an ESTP meetup somewhere one
Yeah.
day. Y'all have
Oh,
a
yeah.
new band of people. Yeah. All right, and so TI. How does everyone experience TI?
I think we described it really well when we talk about music, because like you play one instrument and your TIs kind of like put together how music works. Like what's the not math, but what's the model that music is following? Hey, this note's always going to follow this. So if I can find this note on an instrument, that means that this note will follow. And so like that to me is how TI works. It's finding the linear path that everything is taking and using it.
Yeah, I think you know, in general, the extroverted functions are more like discrete in particular context, and the introverted ones you take across context like that. So to me, TI is like, it's sort of like developing critical skills that even just like, you know, sometimes conceptual tools to help you think more logically across different contexts, and not only just the concrete techniques. For me at least, because I developed a lot of that kind of philosophizing tendency.
Yeah, I feel like it gives you principles from your experiences of like how things work and how to use it for the next thing. So like whatever I do, like once I do it well, I figure it's like I just kind of know the points that I hit to do it well. And I also think it gives you like, I'm not sure if this is a function of TI, but at least the way I experience it too, when I haven't done something before, I can lock on to what matters in a situation. So when me and you had our one-on-one, Joyce, we were talking about how it's different having FE in front of TI versus TI in front of FE, and how when I experience FE, while I'm fully engaged in that FE, especially in business and whatnot, I'm always aware of like the deal I'm getting and the deal you're getting. And I'm always aware of like the different vantage points of that, if that makes sense. And I think that's like TI in front that kind of gives you, for something you've never done before, you can figure out what those vantage points are to give you a benefit even before you've experienced it.
I just want to clarify real quick before someone else talks that TI can be very individualized. So, when I was talking about critical thinking concepts, I'm talking about my personal thought, history of thought and stuff like that. So that won't necessarily be all ESTPs. We each have our own individual way of approaching it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. What I see it, I mean, this is not necessarily like how the function works, but kind of like the behavioral aspect that I've noticed that revealed to me that I'm using TI, which is like, I don't like when people accept something as it is because someone else said it. Some authority or some person that has thought about the issue kind of creates like the person to adopt that opinion. That to me irritates me. Like, I want to understand something on my own. And it can also cause problems because if a group is thinking about the same thing and they're like, yes, this is one thing, I'm very stubborn about how I personally see that making sense. And it can kind of create conflict because of that. So I feel like TI is very self-referencing and very like anti what other people have to say about the topic, I guess.
I agree with that completely, because I know I definitely like to play devil's advocate, and I'll even have an itch to do it if like a lot of people agree on one thing. It's like I'll have an alert in my head that's like, wait a minute, I need to think through this by myself. And I'll notice when I debate with somebody like, I believe my aunt is like an ESTJ or an ENTJ. I think she's an ESTJ because she just has like so many references and facts that she throws my way. And like, for me, I'm just like, just use common sense. Like, that doesn't make sense. I don't care what this person said. If it doesn't make sense in my head, it doesn't matter who said it. It's not like accurate until like, and if they can show me the logic behind the statement, I can get there. But if I can't personally get there, not to say it's not true, but I just don't really take much merit from it.
I think for me, and it still sort of feels like it's this way, but TI almost doesn't even feel like a proper cognitive function. It just feels like logic. And really sort of boils down to everything underlying TI is the law of non-self-contradiction. Premise A and premise B can't both be true if the two premises are conflicting. So it just feels like that's what TI is. It's non-contradiction expanded.
Yeah, and it amazes me sometimes when people will just refuse to admit that, and they want to stick to their conclusions. And it's like, how do you not see how that cannot be true? And I'm amazed. Like, I mean, I can understand if you make a mistake, but if it's pointed out to you and you can see it in front of you and you're still saying that, and it's like, how are you doing this? I don't get it.
That's funny. How about the female ESTPs?
I mean, yeah, I just think of it as like thoroughly understanding things and not just having opinions based on nothing, you know? Like, I am just fine not having opinions about everything. And I can have opinions that can be changed. Like, if somebody makes a good argument, but not just yeah, but I don't just think something because somebody told it to me one time and decided that that was the truth.
Lisa?
I'm always like thinking and stuff, and it's almost like I don't take anyone for their word, like unless I've seen it and it's fact. And so this makes me think like religion. So like I grew up fully like immersed in religion, but I never like bought in. And so I spent an entire night arguing with these two guys full into my adulthood, drinking and arguing about whether I was agnostic or not. And I walked away being like, no, I believe in God. And then like it was maybe 2 days later, and I really was like thought about it without the forced like you're this way. And I was like, oh shit. Yeah, I've been that way my whole like I'm not saying he doesn't exist. I'm just saying if you can't prove it and I can't see it, then maybe it's not real to me. And so it's that sort of thing. Like if I can't see it and I can't experience it and like I can't like really know that it's real, it doesn't really matter to me what other people's like opinions are on it.
Makes sense, makes sense. All right, so the third cognitive function of the ESTP, extroverted feeling, FE. How does that show up in your life, and how would you define it?
I think in part is what I said about fairness. You know, it's about being fair. Just with people in general. I mean, it's not that we are feeling that the other people can go through this or that. You know, it's more like this is the fair game. Everybody should be under, you know, the same kind of conditions or the same rules or whatever. So if I don't know, at least in my case, if I see someone who needs help, you know, because it doesn't have whatever, it's not because, you know, it's more like that I'm empathetic, which in part I am, but it's also because maybe this person is not in a fair situation or something like that.
I think this is going to be a little bit harder one for us to get our heads around because it's a little bit more background. So,
I mean, FE, I think of it just like things are more fun with other people, right? Like if I can find a friend to do something with me, like that would be more fun for me usually than doing it by myself. And then I think of FE too as a sort of like I don't know if it's because of third slot or I'm not that an expert on that kind of stuff, but I definitely will a lot of times just question people's motives a lot and be like wondering, you know, why they're really doing something. So
I think for me, FE is it's like sugar, right? It's fun to have fun in, but it's not going to do any heavy lifting. If I need to get something done, if I'm starving to death, I don't want to eat a tub of icing. I want some actual food. FE is like the tub of icing. It tastes good, but it's not going to do much work.
I was actually going to talk about this earlier when we were talking about bluntness, but so I don't know how much Enneagram will play into what I'm saying here. So there might be differences with other ESTPs because I have the 2 fix, and I just recently found that out. But I remember there was one time when I was a kid, and this is when like my bluntness was directly confronted, and I really started to think about it. We were at some like Amish community or something like that, and I was looking at some drawings, and I'm an artist myself, and my mom was like, "What do you think about this drawing here?" And I was like, "That sucks." Just like that. And then some girl behind me started crying, and she took me aside and she's like, "You might have hurt someone's feelings." And I'm like, "Okay." So my mom's an ESFJ, so I think she helped me to think more towards like using tact a little bit more. So I will tend to try to put, you know, and I especially learned this like recently, even more so. But before I start leaping with a criticism, like I usually do, I'll say something like that where I agree with the person or a compliment or something, and then dig into my actual criticism. So it kind of like Taylor was saying, it laces, you know, the way I talk to people a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I feel like FE for me, and this could be because being a 3 in Enneagram, it definitely started to come out more like once I was like 20, 21. And it basically just helps me like round up whatever group I need to, whether it's the boys, whether it's coworkers at work. It helps me kind of like bring that hurrah, I guess you could say, and bring people together. So I have like this SETI like way I'm going. And if I want to bring people with me, I feel like FE will come out and help me kind of naturally attune to what the room needs to get that motivative, like positive push forward. Or if it's in like a business deal, or if it's just anything, it just helps me tune into the other person and know how to like, I guess you could say, like press the correct buttons. And on top of that, it's more healthy than that. Like it also helps me know who's part of my tribe and like who I really vibe with, and I guess you could say who I don't. Whereas before it was kind of all even keel. Now through the development a little bit of that, I can kind of see like, oh, this dude, I consider him part of my group. I consider him part of my group. Like he's here in this group. He's here. Like it just kind of helps me like see people in my relation to them and the differences between us, I guess you could say.
Yeah. One of the ways tertiary FE can also show up is inappropriate jokes. Sometimes it'll be funny to say things that sometimes get a rise out of people, because it's interesting to see their reaction and see how they'll react to what you're saying.
I relate to that a ton.
True.
I feel like my FE wasn't good until probably when I started studying psychology. I feel like just because I can be blunt in the way that I deliver just how I talk in general, and the FE has given me an ability to kind of smooth over things after I deliver it. It's like it makes me more diplomatic, whereas before I was far more punchy with what I said. But now I can see how it's affecting people, and it's like if I want to deliver this message as effectively as I can, I need to be able to balance what I think and how they're going to receive it. So it's like kind of being able to spread it well without just giving the hammer and not like making sure I'm looking at the collateral damage after that kind of engagement.
I don't know if this relates to FE, but I think we as ESTPs, we are very persuasive. And we can, actually it can be, it's one of the ESTP secrets kind of thing that we we have, and we can use that very like to be for good or bad, depending on each person. But we can actually, like, based on our logic and what we observe, based on our logic, we can convince people of like certain things as well. And with this FE, I think that we can also actually be very persuasive. And I think, yeah, as I said, that could be good or bad, but I think that's something.
Flexible logic is the phrase Socionics uses to describe that, and I like it.
Yeah, we can definitely make what we're saying make perfect sense to the person, and then attune to them and like build like that camaraderie while we're building that sense of logic. And then you have that SE as well, which is kind of got that like sharp confidence. So like nobody's like going to be able to kind of bust that SE, and that TI is going to make sense, and then that FE is going to make you likable. So it's like that could be used for good or bad, depending on, you know, if you're going to go the Jordan Belfort Wolf of Wall Street route, or if you're going to be a good dude and like make things happen for other people. Like it could be used for good as well. So
yeah, it kind of scares me sometimes how easily a lot of people are fooled, and I've realized now it's because I have that vantage point. But yeah, I try to keep myself from, like, sometimes I'll try to stop short of absolutely convincing someone of something if I think maybe they'll believe it for the wrong reasons. Maybe, you know, they need to check it out for themselves. Because I'm like, I know I have the power to absolutely convince somebody something like that.
Sometimes, as I say, sometimes like using it for evil. Sometimes, not a lot, especially not anymore. So I've gotten older, but sometimes I'll spin a story just to see how much bullshit I can get away with, and have the other person still believing it. And it's truly incredible sometimes. I think my favorite one was in college. I convinced 2 different girls that both of them were white chicks. I convinced them that Asian girls had sideways vaginas, and I could like it just blew my mind. How could you believe me when I'm telling you this? Nevertheless,
Oh, that's.
Oh, that was great.
I mean, where were you finding these girls? Because
the dorms.
Yeah, and I think because of not having that FI, I don't know if that's what it is, but sometimes if you're like convinced, like usually I do stuff like that as a joke. Sometimes I feel like, are they using like something, like they're faking like they believe me right now? But like then you start to realize like people are actually buying it, which is crazy to me. Like it's just because we would never buy shit like that. Personally,
I think we have pretty good BS meters most of the time too, because they're.
Yeah.
And speaking of that and bluntness, one time this guy was, I was a camp counselor, and this is like during the week, and we were just hanging out and stuff. And he talked about, he had all these different stories. Or one of them was like, there were all these like plastic penises in the store, and he actually knocked the stand over and was like trying to like put them back, and it's like my hands were filled with penises and stuff like that. And then like we had a bunch of other like crazy stories, and just one time I was just like, are you sure that happened? Just like right out there like that, and everybody just had this awkward moment like, did he just I mean, some of the stories were crazier than that. Like I don't know, there's like some secret dungeon underneath this card game store or something like that, and I was like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. How about Caleb? What are your thoughts on extroverted feeling?
I think I agree, and I've had to start using the phrase that just because I believe something doesn't mean it's true for the other individual. Like I've determined in my own logic, I've determined my own way in my head that things make sense. And just because to me, like I mentioned earlier, I dropped a line about like, I've been in a lot of open relationships. Just because I've done that and I don't see a problem with it, that means I don't see a problem with it for me. It doesn't mean Joe Blow over here needs to have 4 wives and 3 boyfriends. It works for me because I know myself and I know the people I get involved with. It does not mean that I'm trying to share my values per se, but just because the way that I can talk up, the way that some of them have gone, because there's been some really good relationships over the years that have worked out really well, it does not mean it's going to work out for this dude who's been with the same chick for 8 years. Y'all probably shouldn't just wing it for trying what I do. And so like I've had to be careful because like I talk up things that like to me make sense. And I've had to really master the phrase of just because it worked for me does not mean it will for you. Like I've had to start using that in conversation a lot because there are a lot of things that work for me because I just kind of roll with it and see what happens. Does not mean it's going to work for this person who's really serious about their life. Like I'm just winging it and having a good time. You don't need to do that. You know what I mean? And so like, but with that FE, like being able to play things up and like to have that charisma go with it, it's dangerous because like I can convince somebody of things. Like I was a car salesman up until COVID hit, and then I lost my job. And like, but as a car salesman, I was able to get people really into cars that like they did not need. Like I talked this guy and his wife who had a kid on the way into a Infiniti with a double turbo and all this other crazy stuff. And they're like, dude, we want this. And I'm like, yeah, let's draw the paperwork up. And it's like, oh no, they don't need this. They need a minivan. But here we are in this, car that you definitely don't need. But I made my sell, and that was, it's dangerous in a way.
Yeah. And it's like when people are close to you, you can be so persuasive about things that you want to make sure, because you care, like you want to make sure you're not manipulating them into making the wrong decision for themselves. And I found that like I have recently, just like you said, like been very vigilant about realizing when I'm talking about something that maybe I feel a certain way about, making sure I'm not changing this person next to me's mind by accident, and making sure they know like, hey, I'm not trying to switch your opinion on it. Because sometimes people will just switch their opinions to yours. And it's like you don't want to always do that because it might not serve them well. So I relate to that a lot.
It's like when I started doing DoorDash. Like, dude, I love DoorDash. I have a wonderful time doing DoorDash. I get to drive around all day, jam out to music. I don't have to answer to anybody. It's fantastic. And when I started doing it while I was at my last job, working my 2 weeks, And this dude with a kid, 2 dogs, and a house is like, dude, maybe I should do that. And I'm like, you should not do that. Like, my monthly expenses are not that much. I live in a tiny home in the middle of nowhere. I don't cost a lot of money. You have other priorities. You don't need to do this just because I'm having a great time. Like, you may not be rolling in the money that I am. You may not be able to afford the lifestyle I'm living. Like, you should probably think about your priorities separate from mine. You don't have my life. You don't need to make my choices. But I sold DoorDash to him, and he's like, dude, I think I'm going to go do that. I'm like, don't do that. So, yeah.
Yeah. There's a contextual element to extroverted feeling too. So it's like, well, how you deal with the situation really depends on the situation that you're in. It's not like you have this constant FI where you can see what is the best moral choice or not. The moral choice is contextual to the situation you're dealing with. And so introverted intuition in the fourth thought, what is everyone's experience with that?
If I take like an edible or smoke, I use it a lot. Outside of that, not really aware of what's going on with that.
We don't really have any experiences with NI.
I think it's led me down some weird roads with conspiracy theories.
Yep.
Like, I'm crazy about conspiracy theories because it tickles that NI, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. The earth is hollow and giants are coming. And like, there's not enough to tell me that that's not true. So SE can't discount that the earth is hollow and there's giants chilling and we've known about it for a few thousand years and there's a tunnel in Antarctica. It's crazy. Like, who killed JFK? You know, it's crazy.
George Bush.
Right. There's not enough to stop me from believing that. Like, so if SE can't discount it, then it might be true.
I think that Foresight NI, because I am also like deep down the rabbit hole. I think NI gets a lot of the blame for that. Like, people look at it and they go, oh, that's just bad NI. And while they're sitting there group thinking themselves into stupidity. But I think also what some of it is it's like all the other functions, right? Like SE, I can see what's going on. TI, A makes more sense than B. FE, I understand that, you know, politicians aren't politicians because they're benevolent. And so you can mix all the other stronger elements together and see that, you know what, Jeffrey Epstein probably didn't fucking kill himself.
Yeah, okay, so I'll just come out and say that, like, for a while I was big into anarcho-capitalism because it's like the government is just basically a gang of thieves writ large. They're just another gang, you know, basically. And I've kind of nuanced my position since then a little bit, but, you know, it's like a very cynical outlook. But, you know, that sort of, I guess how I relate that to NI would be, I don't know, just the conceptual framework that I'm working in.
Well, I don't know if this goes with NI, but I don't know. We kind of have this natural ability to read body language, right? I don't know about you guys, but happens to me like almost naturally. I know what someone's saying, and that goes with SE, right? But sometimes when I don't know someone, I may misinterpret some of those like kind of signs or expressions or something. And because I don't know this person, I'm kind of start like, why is this person trying to tell me, or why is this person acting this way? And then I'm start like, you know, thinking and developing like theories. Yeah, like, oh, maybe this person doesn't like me, or maybe this and this, and it kind of goes weird. But usually it's when I don't know something and I cannot figure it out like right away. That kind of gets kind of confusing.
It's like not having access to that SE like concrete information, and your NI having to fill in the blanks. Things just get like real confusing real quick.
Oh God, when someone leaves you on read for like a couple days, what's going on?
Yeah. Are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, that actually happens to me. Like, for example, if I'm dating someone and that person, it's those kind of like that doesn't tell you, but like I'm like, I prefer you tell me. I like you know, shit. I'm not gonna just like, I prefer you telling me like, no, like this is over or whatever, so I can move on, than have to like, oh, okay, what's going on? You know, that kind of thing.
100%. I think I've had a pretty strong connection to my intuition at times, but it's hard to explain or put into words. It's sort of an ineffable type of thing, but sometimes I'll just like conceptualize an idea or something, or I don't know if like meditation is in any way related to that, or if that's just sort of a separate kind of practice. But I've done a lot of meditation and stuff like that.
I've wondered that too.
Yeah,
I think that it is. I think
the reason why I say that's it's like centering within yourself, you know.
Yeah, I think meditation makes you for sure better at it. I used to meditate, and I need to do it again, but it is helpful for that.
Yeah, totally.
How do you experience NI, Joyce? I know we're talking about ESTPs, but I'd like to hear like the inverse of what it's like to have that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, NI in the dominant slot, maybe it's not for all INFJs, but it's actually looking really into the future. So it's future pacing. What are all the future implications off of this current thing? But it's like until the end of time. You're taking an implication, you're stretching it out across time, or taking an idea and stretching it out to the end, the last idea you can get from it. Introverted functions just in general are slower, and then like the extroverted functions are really fast. NI in the last slot, sometimes it can show up as a hasty generalization. So you see body language, but very quick to kind of jump to what it might mean, type of that. In a positive way, what it can show up as is this ability to know the immediate consequences of everything. So it's almost like if someone does this, you know that immediate consequence is going to be this specific consequence. So it's the ability to, oh, if this guy's having his head a certain way and his body's a certain way, then it means a certain thing. And so it's the immediate ability to gauge how to react around your environment almost. But that's a few things. Well, what about any other thoughts on NI?
I don't like the questions of like, and this is just like an intuitive thing in general of like hypotheticals of like, in my mind, like NI is very hypothetical. When someone's like, well, what are you going to do in 5 years? I'm like, well, 5 years hasn't happened yet. So I don't know what I would do in 5 years because I'm not in 5 years. I'm in now. So in my mind, I can only project into 5 years given the present information and where it's most likely going to head. But I'm not like, I'm taking one step at a time, and wherever my foot lands, so to speak, I will be able to kind of see, well, I'm on this path now, and I don't see me leaving this path, so I'm going to keep moving, and then I might be able to see other alternatives or see, you know, the kind of long-term implication of where that's going to go.
Yeah, so it seems last slot NI, what it causes is the change in timeline orientation. So it's like, yeah, it's hypothetical if it's 5 years. The most real is right now. Whereas NI can feel almost like the abstract version of reality can be more real than actual reality at the moment.
So I don't know. I have kind of an example. In my in my previous job, like there were some type of task that we have to do, and one was some documents that we have to write, and it was a immediate like kind of thing because it was delivered the same day. And there were some other type of like documents that it took months like to write. So they were assigning people for the daily kind of reports we have to write and the monthly one. And I was like, oh, I definitely want the daily ones because I want to, you know, I want that continuous kind of like I'm getting this done, and not like this one that is gonna take forever. I mean, I don't see the point of like doing this for so long kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's just weird. I mean, I just want immediate things like done.
Yeah. So there's an impatience with certain things. SE is famous for impatience.
I think that there's also a little bit of like, I don't know, maybe cognitive humility or something in it. Like with the 5 years question, I can't possibly tell you what life is going to throw at me in the next 5 years. At no point in my life, if you ask me that question, at no point would my answer have ever been correct, right? Like I've always ended up someplace different in 5 years than I would have just guessed offhand. And I think part of that is just the acknowledgement that circumstances have at least equal impact on where you end up than intention. I'm not going to try to swim upstream for 5 years. If I set a goal out 5 years and then the wind changes, so does my goal. But
well put. And so any last thoughts on NI?
I feel like I use my TI to supplement my NI. Like I'll be like, logically, this is what I think would happen. But do I know? Not really.
Yeah, I was going to say that I think for NI Dom, NI is probably more like very immersive, and you can kind of conceptualize a whole scenario or something like that. Like I have an INFJ friend who's talked about that. And for me, using SE as a primary function, it's like I need I'm dependent for information on actual observing of information. And that's why I want to wait until the context or the moment in which to make the decision, or otherwise I can't even conceptualize like that in order to be able to make the decision ahead of time.
Makes sense.
I'm going to be very poor at it, like Taylor said.
Yeah. And so this is wonderful dialogue, ESTPs. I really enjoyed this chat. You guys are so unfiltered, raw, honest, and you say things that are so blunt. It's almost hilarious sometimes. And the ability you all have to notice what's around you and have this observational skill to you and almost experience life in this visceral, stimulating way seems very interesting. Your ability to experience life and all it has to offer and being open to experiences is wonderful. It allows you to kind of build the TI model inside your mind, and that's applaudable. And so thank you, DJ, for being the residential Enneagram expert. You didn't talk much about it during this panel, but you do have mad Enneagram skills from the Catherine Favier branch. Yeah.
Thank you.
And so thank you, Amanda, for your ability to drive extra well without cruise control. Like, dang, stellar. And Charles, your commentary on the feeling confined if people get into your personal space really resonated with the ESTPs, so you got that spot on. And Alyssa, her and her husband being that thinking versus feeling divide is hilarious, and I loved learning about that.
We've talked about having a YouTube channel.
Ooh.
And like just putting cameras up, because I just feel like the interactions we have is probably not normal for most couples, and like pretty amusing most of the time. Our kids, like my 14-year-old's counselor called me and she's like talking about my daughter's issue, but then she's like, yeah, she's so sweet. She's telling me about you and your husband, and she says you guys talk in all caps, that you don't fight, but it's just you are yelling but like talking. And I'm just like, no, she did. Like, yeah, we have like strong thoughts very loudly out loud.
Oh, and you get that YouTube going, you talk about your sex capades, so we really get the subscriber number.
I thought it was going to be an OnlyFans.
So that's probably the only place we could stream it.
Well, let me know when you set that up. Drop a link.
He's more self-conscious about like all of that. Like, I'm down to have like public sex. He won't, which I've never heard of a dude that's not like always down, but he's like, oh, what if someone found out? I'm like, they're never gonna know.
Nobody's watching the dudes anyways. Dudes are just props.
Cares.
Leather masks.
I bought these bunny masks. I'm like, that could be our thing.
It could be all of our thing.
Just rolling into OnlyFans. I'm gonna fuck the mask, man.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Okay, and so Alejandro,
you're never gonna look at a bunny the same way again. Never.
And so
We broke the host.
Oh gosh. And so, Alejandro, I enjoyed your commentary on SE and all the nuances you had to how you guys experience it, and your amazing ability to observe everything. I wish I had your eyes. It seems like it would be more useful than having 10 pairs of eyes. Not all ESTPs, but some of them maybe have that Hawkeye. I know. So that's amazing. And Caleb, you are very open about your life and how it's not for everyone. And it's really interesting how you're able to form these personal logic structures, and you don't really push on your way of life onto other people, and you just like to make the most out of your life and live a happy life. And you have a tiny home, right? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I've got it's a little green tiny home. It's off in the middle of the woods. I only technically own a half acre, but I don't have any neighbors within about 10 acres of me. So I've got a German Shepherd wolf mix. He just gets to run free and have a big time, and then we cuddle on the couch, watch movies.
That's badass.
It's fantastic.
Super badass.
We have a great time.
A+.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And Taylor, he has an awesome channel called Flow State, and he has his ESTP shenanigans on there, and you can kind of hear his thoughts. The thing is, a lot of people on YouTube censor themselves, so they're not as fun to listen to. But when you listen to an ESTP's YouTube channel, it's fun because they say it straight up and everyone else is too afraid to say it straight up. And so it's refreshing content. And Taylor offers that in spades. So go check that out as well. So Justin, I really enjoyed how you're able to succinctly say the things about the cognitive functions. What you mentioned about the contextual, so the extroverted functions are contextual and the introverted functions expand, actually can see something across time. So it's more long-term. Introverted functions are more long-term and extroverted functions are more short-term. And that was a really concise way of putting it. And I appreciate your enthusiasm to be on Type Talks. I think you mentioned, you're like, yeah, I want to be on. So your eagerness is well appreciated.
Totally, it's been fun.
And so thanks everyone for tuning in, and this is a great episode. My panels with EPs are always the funnest. And so thanks for tuning in. I'll see you all in the next episode.
All right.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.